What's happening? Remix
Welcome,
Morning Show in
welcome.
the building. Look who stepped in the room. Claudia de la Cruz. Well, well, well. Fancy seeing you here. How's everything going?
Oh, the world is burning. I'm all right though. How are y'all
Okay.
doing?
Good, good, good.
About to
Good to see
say,
y'all.
hanging in there in a burning world.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, yes, yes. So we wanted to bring you on as our official, unofficial Caribbean correspondent to talk about what's going on in Haiti right now. We know a lot of, we know that the world, I mean, we've had you on a couple times so far this year. I think the first time we was talking about the assassination of the Haitian president. The second time we talked about the earthquake situation. And once again, back again where the topic is about Haiti, the whole deportation and that type of situation. Give us an analysis of what you think is going on and why, we have these thieves on horseback running folks out.
I mean, it's not a new picture, right? I mean, I think if we know history well enough, we've seen those images, unfortunately. And the root causes of Haitian migration are due to U.S. economic and political intervention in Haiti, going back to the early 1900s when the U.S. was cementing its imperialist agenda, creating neo-colonies and guaranteeing their interests in the Caribbean and in Latin America. And so that's the root cause. And we need to call these Haitian migrants rushing to the border what they are. They are Haitian refugees. And I don't know why people are kind of hesitant to use the word refugee, but when we talk about refugees, we acknowledge the fact that they're just not simply waking up one day and saying, oh, I'm going to cross borders and make it to the US, because that's not what's happening. There was a process of destabilizing socially, economically, and politically their country. And so they're fleeing the economic and social and political disaster that has been caused by US imperialism and the Haitian oligarchy. We must also understand their migration to other countries and the US, because we also need to acknowledge that there's a different entry point. Folks aren't coming through Miami. Folks are coming through Southern Latin American countries and Central America. Right. And so a lot of these folks have already left Haiti and had been living in some of the countries that saw uprisings in 2019 and have seen harsher immigrant policies in the last 2 years. And so they're coming up from the southern parts of Latin America. It's important to see this also as a matter of human rights. And I think, we need to reclaim the definition of human rights that our radical traditions put forth: the right to self-determination, to having access to the most basic human needs, to live full and dignified lives in peace and absence of war. And war happens in many different ways. People talk about hybrid wars these days, where it's not only foot on the ground, right? It's not only occupation, it's also through false narratives, is also through legal means like lawfare. And so understanding that human beings have the right to occupy their territory in a dignified and peaceful way. And the United States is one of the biggest violators of human rights in our homes here domestically and out in the world. One of the biggest violators of human rights. And so as people living in the United States, we have much more of a responsibility. And I don't like the term of holding our government accountable because they're not accountable to us, period. They've never been. They're accountable to big corporations. They're accountable to the elite of this country. And so we need to go beyond that and think about how do we uproot the system of imperialism and capitalism that allows for the foreign policies that are established by the Democrats and by the Republicans to cause the migration, this forced migration of human beings. And like for the purpose of time, because I'm talking a lot, and because we live in like the US state of amnesia, because we forget shit often, I want to highlight some things that I think are important to get a clear understanding of why Haitian refugees at the border, and by the thousands, because it's not like hundreds, it's by the thousands. In 1991, we need to remember there was a coup d'etat. In 2004, there was a U.S. coup d'etat also against the popularly elected government of Aristide. The U.S. Intensified its presence in Haiti with its military back then. Right? The UN brought in also military that was composed of different soldiers from different parts of the region. A deeper economic and political crisis came after 2004, corrupted US-backed governments, complete destabilization of Haiti. Right? We also need to remember that Guantanamo Bay, all this talk about, oh, Guantanamo Bay soldiers are now going to be in need to learn Creole. Well, that's old news. In the 1990s, Guantanamo Bay served to hold Haitian asylum seekers. Like, it's not new. They're going back to practices that are part of the US imperialist history. In 2010, there was the earthquake that plummeted an already weakened infrastructure. And when I talk about infrastructure, I'm not only talking about buildings or roads, I'm talking about socially, economically, politically, like I'm mentioning. And so the country didn't fully recover. And if we go back to just a year or 2 years back, people have been on the streets since February 2019 because of the miserable conditions that folks have been experiencing. You know, the United States' only interest in intervening was to crush down the possibility of rebellion in Haiti. That's its only interest. And so when we see again this flood of Haitian refugees at the border, we need to consider the fact that they're coming following the traces of everything that has been stolen from them. That's what the United States has done in Haiti. And so again, we can't be alarmed. At this moment, it's much more about how much is our sense of humanity and our sense of just being over this shit does for us to be able to clearly see and uplift the hypocrisy of the Biden administration. They're not the lesser evil. They're as evil. Trump, Biden, Democrats, Republicans both serve the same God: capitalism, capitalist interests. That's what they serve. And so it's important, again, for us to be able to uplift that we need something different. We need to be able to transform this country by its roots. And to think about 690,000 human beings that have already been deported. It's like, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. And it should move us to be able to move this country into a different direction.
Wow.
Claudia, I wanted to jump in and ask you about what's happening on the ground. So the current prime minister, I think, is Henry, who there's also accusations that this person played a role in the assassination of Morsi, but is also now putting forth again the same referendum in which the population rose up against, is now suggesting that he's going to put forth this referendum again. And part of the referendum, if I'm understanding it correctly, is around, speaking of capitalism, is relaxing again more laws or legislation around who can own land, which again seems to be something that the United States / the West is pushing for the corporations that have some interest in Haiti, so that they can become bigger landowners. So can you talk a little bit about the current political situation in Haiti post the assassination? This is now the second prime minister. Mm-hmm. The first one was forced to step down when the U.S. basically decided that they wanted this new person, Henry, in. So can you talk a little bit about what's happening with the current political situation in Haiti?
I mean, again, I think looking back into history, because I'm a nerd for that. It's important to understand that there has been a process of like Operation Democracy happening in Haiti. And I mean democracy as the United States understands it, right? Which we know is not real democracy. But again, moving forward, the interest of the imperialists and the capitalists. And when you think and talk about the new prime minister, what he is doing in Haiti is precisely that, is guaranteeing the interests of the United States and European countries as well, which is creating creating Haiti to be very similar to what Barbado and the Dominican Republic is, which is not owned by Dominicans. It's owned by Spaniards, by Italians, and everybody that could actually come and buy land that Dominicans cannot afford to buy. And so, you know, Haiti is going to be sold to the highest bidder. And Haiti is meant in the capitalist construct not to be owned by Haitians. And so, you know, again, it's not that we don't need to go too deep to explain what the situation is. There's obviously the sense of revolt from the ground, people who are revolting against those possibilities, and at the same time being met with extreme force that the United States is also a part of supporting, because ultimately it doesn't matter how many Haitians need to be crushed for capitalist and imperialist interests to advance in Haiti.
Recently, the UN Special Envoy resigned. Can you speak to that? Why do you think that was? Do you think that it's just a coincidence, or is it a shame? Is it, you know, what is your take on that?
I mean, I think it's important to. There was a resignation letter that came out, and it's important to read it. It's important to take, you know, the time and read it and get the full story. Like I said, I think that there is a huge interest in Haiti. There are also going to be folks that are going to kind of try to wash their hands at a given moment, and knowingly that their hands are filthy with blood, they're filthy with, you know, with a lot of things. And it's not shame and it's not guilt, but politically it makes sense for some of these things to take place in this moment. And we need to be more alert on why decisions are being made around Haiti. Those who wash their hands, those who try to justify what's happening, the narratives that are being put out, those are things that we need to be able to analyze with a critical lens.
Mm-hmm. Claudia, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Sort of extending on that point some, so the UN Human Rights Commission also put out a statement condemning the United States deportations of Haitians, which I thought was really rich, considering all the harm that the United Nations has caused on the island directly itself.
That's right.
Including the cholera outbreak that happened after the big earthquake, and the amount of child sex trafficking that UN so-called peacekeepers were alleged to have done to Haitian children the entire time that they were there. But in terms of the U.S. state response, I guess with the lip services, when the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas on this past Sunday was on Meet the Press with Chuck Todd, and he talked about how they had put 2,000 Haitians on flights going back to Haiti because, quote, the country was able to receive them. And Chuck Todd did not follow up on that statement at all. Is Haiti able to receive these deported refugees that have come from the United States and, you know, from other places in Central and South America? Is the island able to receive them back? And I also want you to speak about the status of people from Haiti trying to apply for asylum here in the U.S. and how both the Biden and Trump administrations are unconcerned with Haitians asylum applications.
I mean, I think that's a great question in terms of, like, is Haiti capable, like, does it have capacity to hold the thousands of people that are being sent back? The answer is no. Haiti cannot right now at this moment hold the amount of people in Haiti. And that's why people are rebelling, because economically, politically, and socially, there's a deep crisis in Haiti. And it was caused, again, and I want to just continue to hammer this, it was caused by the same people that are denying Haitians entry, you know, to the United States. The Biden administration, the Democrats, have a longer history in warmongering than any other, like, party in the United States. The Democrats have historically created policies against the working class consistently, domestically and internationally. And so is Haiti ready to receive those folks that are being deported? No, Haiti is not. It is not, you know. administratively, there's chaos. Just infrastructurally, like it doesn't have the capacity to do so. In terms of like the UN's role, like I've always been kind of like baffled. The United Nations has its role to play in imperialism as well. You know, again, a lot of the soldiers that came to Haiti in the 1990s following the coup, like were UN soldiers. And we know what war is and what it does. We can't romanticize it. That was war. Folks were being occupied by UN soldiers who were not there to help in any way, shape, or form, but advance in many ways the agenda of like the United States and using soldiers from different parts of Latin America. I'll mention Brazil again, and all of the other countries that, you know, have some sort of agreement with the United States. And so that's important to be said. Yeah.
Just to jump in really quickly, because and that was under Lula, the Brazilian president, the leftist Brazilian president, who again saw his own interest, or what he thought was Brazil's interest, in trying to heighten their role internationally as more important than supporting really the Haitian people. So again, as good as he was in some ways in terms of some of the policies in Brazil, unlike in Venezuela or Cuba, one reason why the Brazilian radical on the ground work has not prospered is because they've taken somewhat of a right turn, and part of that has allowed them to do what they did almost a decade ago at this point.
You know, I just wanted to take a break from all this Democratic Party bashing, and you know, because we can push them left, as we've been told all these years, and at least they're better than Trump. So I don't appreciate all of that, but I was wondering what you thought of this. I just saw this because to the rescue, as always, is Israel with a solution, which would be to build a wall at the Dominican Haitian border. So because obviously this works so well for their occupation of Palestine. So the ambassador of Israel in the Dominican Republic, Daniel Biran, said that about 3 weeks ago, his country presented its interest in participating in the tender for a technological wall.
Of course he would.
Dominican Haitian border. So I don't know if you saw this good news, but you know, the solutions are there. If you would just stop bashing the Democrats, they will work with the Israelis and solve all these problems.
And I mean, Trump's wall.
Your people, you know, the Democrats, the Israeli, all of them, including Haitian oligarchs, are okay with that solution. They're okay with that solution, right? And I say that because the Dominican Republic has been looking for a way of stopping immigrants from Haiti to come to the Dominican Republic, because we just can't, in many ways. And I mean the oligarchs, the wealthy, they can't come to terms with the fact that our roots are very much tied with the Haitian people. Like there's a preference that is racial, that is economic, to be able to allow for Europeans and the US to come in again and buy at very low cost to every inch of the Dominican Republic. But Haitian workers are, again, being stopped at the border. If there isn't like some sort of contract that binds an owner in Haiti and an owner in the Dominican Republic that allows for the transit of workers, it's very hard. The life is very hard for Haitian workers in the Dominican Republic. I mean, we just need to go back to 2013. There was a law that was passed that made thousands of Haitians stateless in the Dominican Republic. Thousands, going back 40 years. We're talking about 4 generations. And so we need to also understand, in the logic of Dominican elite and the government, whatever government it is, they're always, again, there to advance the agenda of the rich and to be able to move forward whatever agenda the United States, which is the mainland for them, because it's a neo-colony, has in store for them. And so, you know, your friends, the Democrats, the Israeli, all of them, they chill. They're gang. That's what they do, you know, and what they do also is divide and conquer and find narratives of saying that the Haitian immigrants are the problem in the Dominican Republic. And the Haitian immigrants will be the problem in the United States. And the Haitian immigrants are the problems in Chile. I don't know if you also heard news about Chile, but there are thousands of Haitian and Colombian and Dominican immigrants there that are now being like, their houses are being burned. People are being violently met with force, not only by the state, but by folks in Chile that are anti-immigrant. So this sentiment is something, and these narratives are very much promoted by the elite and their media to be able to cause this divide and conquer, where you have the working class fighting the working class and distracted from everything and anything that the actual elite is doing.
So besides Jared's Democratic and Israeli friends, what do you say that the ultimate goal is when it comes to the United States and I dare not say relationship with Haiti, because it's kind of like saying a relationship between Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. What is the ultimate, you know, goal in your eyes, you know, as far as this whole situation?
I mean, we need to see again that the United States geopolitically has lost a lot of legitimacy. The neoliberal projects have also lost a lot of legitimacy. If we see, you know, take into consideration and seriously all the uprisings that have happened, and just like the struggles that are coming up, that COVID as a global health crisis kind of has decreased in some way. But the United States continues to move forward to make sure that they maintain hegemony, right? And so, yes, they left Afghanistan, but they're pivoting to China, right? And they're also cementing themselves as the ultimate power in this region. You know, you have Bolivia, who gained back the socialist agenda. You have Peru that actually won with Castillo. You have Venezuela. You have Cuba. You have possibilities also of regaining control in Brazil. So like there's all these possibilities for the region. Haiti, again, if we go back to colonial times, is a very pivotal, very important, very significant territory for control, as is Colombia as well, you know. And so it's very, and as is Puerto Rico. So like it's very important for the United States to be able to maintain control of Haiti, to maintain control of Colombia, to be able to maintain control of Puerto Rico, because this is where they will do their surveillance, their militarism, to be able to launch war against whoever decides to become a nation state free from the logic of capitalism. It also creates an opportunity for more economic development. You know, the process of gentrification that we know in our communities could be parallel to the process of displacement and the construction of these huge resorts for the gain of profit of capitalists in the United States and Europe.
Man, there you have it, folks. I told y'all that Claudia was coming. Y'all didn't believe me. You know what I'm saying? We here now. Jay, you got anything to say on behalf of your Democrats and Israeli buddies, or you good?
Nah, I'll just check back with them and be back to respond. I'll have the official response to Claudia's propaganda in the next
get your gang in order
next
man.
week. Yeah, we'll check back later because this is nonsense.
Gang, yeah.
Gang in the building. They're here. Hey, we definitely appreciate you stopping through again, Claudia. Again, for the folks in the chat, we drafting Claudia to be on the remix, so make sure if y'all want Claudia on, because we already reached out to her. She tried to stun on us. So if you in the chat, and you want Claudia to be a permanent fixture, that's right, we going there on the Remix Morning Show. Put it in the chat.
Popping up on other platforms.
Campaigning.
We see.
That's right. Gang in the building. We here. What up? Anyway, definitely appreciate you, and we'll see you soon. Remix Morning Show.
Thank y'all for having me. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely salute.